Florida Governor DeSantis signed the bills requiring high school students in his state to understand the evilness of communism. On the other hand, in Virginia Loudoun County, parents fight against the critical race theory intensified. Hello, welcome to Win and Kathy show. Unfortunately, today it's still we cannot make it, so it will still me by myself with you. So, but the topic is interesting, and I hope you will stay with me. All right. So, first of all, let's continue to take a look at what's happening in Loudoun County, Virginia. And you may have already noticed in the news that the fight just got intensified. And this still becoming the national news, with the main focus being the controversy over the critical race theory. So what happened? At the school board meeting on June 22nd, a lot of people registered to speak at the public comment session. It was reported that 259 people registered to speak. So the meeting started at 4 p.m. and the participants actually lined up 1 hour in advance to get in. However, the public comment session that was expected to last until 7 p.m. local time recessed once only 10 minutes after it began and ended abruptly after 1 hour. So why was that? In fact, if I don't know if you have watched the live broadcast of the board meeting, those who spoke in the first 10 minutes virtually were all in support of the critical race theory policy that the board is trying to adopt. Is that arrangement or coincidence? We don't know. It's just a fact. I wanted to point it out. So at about 10 minutes-ish, a woman spoke. Obviously, what she talked about upset a lot of the parents.
Today, instead of focusing on the hate that seems to be dripping off the followers of Jesus in this room, and from their kids in our schools, I wanted to take the time. Oh wait, I can wait. The board is in recess for 5 minutes.
Okay, so I don't know if you heard it. The volume was a little bit low in the beginning. She was saying that today, instead of addressing the hate dripping over the followers of Jesus, so that really, how can you take that? Right? Is that an attack on the people's religious belief? So some parents presented, just to voice their protest. So the chair of the school board immediately announced, we have to recess for 5 minutes. So after resuming the meeting, people continued to speak. And most of people who spoke were against the critical race theory policy. And later, an elderly person came up and introduced himself as the retired Virginia State Senator Dick Black. His speech was not only cut off at the end, and right after he spoke, the school board decided to end the public comment session early. So what did he say?
You retaliated against Tanner Cross by yanking him from teaching for addressing a public hearing of this board. The judge ordered you to reinstate Mr. Cross because if his comments were not protected speech, then free speech does not exist at all. It's absurd and immoral for teachers to call boys girls and girls boys. You're making teachers lie to students, and even kids know that it's wrong. This board has a dark history of suppressing free speech. They caught you red-handed with an enemies list to punish opponents of critical race theory. You're teaching children to hate others because of their skin color, and you're forcing them to lie about other kids' gender. I am disgusted by your bigotry.
Joe Mobley, to be followed by Donna Russell.
Okay, so obviously maybe his time was all up, and but he just had the last sentence cut off. Then the chair of the school board immediately announced the next speakers, but another school board member immediately raised a motion to end the public speech session early, and it got a second, and all of the school board members voted for the motion.
The motion carries 9-0. Public comment is now ended. We will move to our next agenda item.
So they ended the public comments early, and only probably 1/4 of the people who registered to speak actually spoke. So it raised an uproar by the audience. So the remaining 200 parents who wanted to express their opinion, they did not have a chance. So what they do? So because the school board members just left, and the parents obviously were upset, but they quickly resort to express their emotion in their own way. And then they, started to continue to speak one by one in front of the remaining audience in an orderly manner, which they did not have the opportunity to be heard by the school board. And from the videos, you can see the sheriffs there who were there to maintain orders were also watching peacefully, except for at one time, seems to be one participant had some dispute with others, and the sheriff tried to drag him out, and he kind of refused. Then he was arrested on the ground, and it was later reported that he was released. So at a certain point of time, someone seems to be from the school board took the mic and announced that who still stay in the boardroom will be treated as an illegal assembly. So most of the parents left the boardroom and went outside. But one of them tried to explain to the sheriff why they still have the rights to stay in the room.
All these people were doing here was taking the time to be able to show and share, at least with their own people, why they're here. They have every right to do that and to press their rights and their regrets in terms of what's gone on in this county. And you guys are being a tool of that thing, all right? And as a result, you guys are actually supporting the suppression of people's rights.
Are you refusing to leave at this time?
Yes, I'm refusing to leave.
Kids too.
Deputies, please arrest this individual for trespassing.
Oh my God.
Please, thanks, Bill.
Based on what transaction? What did I do wrong?
Just put your hands behind your back for me, sir, please.
What? Tell me what I did wrong.
Please don't read this.
This is an unlawful arrest. I have a First Amendment right.
Listen, you do, right?
You're right. Okay, thank you. Here's someone speaking rationally.
Listen to me. At this point, the meeting is over, right?
It's not over. It's not over. We were.
Okay, so that's what happened, and most of the media just focused on how the two people were arrested, the chaotic scene in the boardroom. But would like to present to you what's the context. So how do you think? What did that remind you? To me, I just it kind of reminded me of January 6th, although, it's a different scale of the crowd who were there. But for this John, from the video, you can hear this persons who were arrested called John. He was trying to reasoning that they came to the board meeting to express their opinions and that they should have the right to stay there. But, since the board announced that if you stay in the room, it's illegal assembly. So is that, illegal assembly? How do you think? What do you think? Are they justified to arrest this person? What do you think? You can leave your comments there, and truly now it becomes national news. So from this incident, what do you think? 2 points I would like to point out. So the recession of the board meeting and how they abruptly ended the public comment session was when the board here heard dissenting voice against the CRT, right? So, and second is, actually quite a few people who supported the critical race theory all just talk something about the religious belief of the opposers of the CRT. So it really to me, I think it infringe people's religious belief, religious freedom. So that's really the issue of the First Amendment, religious belief and free speech. All right, so to again, reminds us of the Chinese American mom from Loudoun County who spoke at the previous school board meeting. It really reminds of her the Chinese Cultural Revolution. To Kathy, to myself, I think what happened yesterday on the June 22nd still reminds me of that scene. All right, so let's take a look at Florida. It's that's a Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. He held a press conference on the same day yesterday, on the June 22nd, at Three Oaks Middle School in Fort Myers, and he signed 3 bills on regarding students' civic education. One of them requires high school students in the state to learn and understand the evilness of communism. So, what are the three bills? The first bill, HB 5, that requires the Florida Department of Education to develop a comprehensive K-12 civic education curriculum, including teaching students the the basic rights of citizens under the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And he mentioned that to this bill, there's a specific requirement to require high school courses to include a comparative discussion of political ideology such as communism and totalitarianism, which conflict with the principle of freedom and democracy that's essential to the founding principle of the United States.
The bill also expands our previous efforts in civics to add a requirement for the high school government class that students receive instruction on the evils of communism and totalitarian ideologies. We have a number of people in Florida, particularly southern Florida, who've escaped totalitarian regimes, who've escaped communist dictatorships to be able to come to America. We want all students to understand the difference. Why would somebody flee across shark-infested waters, say leaving from Cuba to come to southern Florida? Why would somebody leave a place like Vietnam? Why would people leave these countries and risk their life to be able to come here?
So indeed, among the guests who were invited by the governor to speak at the press conference was Anna Margareta Abauza. He lives in Florida now, but actually she, that's a she. She was born in Nicaragua, fled to United States as a teenager. After she graduated from the University of Florida, and she, followed her husband, who was from Venezuela, to live in Venezuela. And after a few years of good days, Venezuela also, became socialism, communism. So Anna had no choice but to escape to the United States for the second time with her family. So she currently lives in Florida.
I came here when I was 16 years old from Nicaragua, running away from that Leninist Marxist regime. I was president of the school government, and they were trying to brainwash us in thinking that they were bringing benefits and well-being to the people of Nicaragua. Obviously not. Right now, that country, in Nicaragua, the one that I was born in, is even worse than the day that I left. So I'm thankful to be here. I would defend this country with my life if I had to. And I tell you that listening to my granddaughter talking to me about socialism not being that bad is the worst thing that can happen to me. So we have to push these bills, and we have to show our young people what it really is.
Right. So according to this HB 5, Florida will provide a patriotism portrait library that display personal stories of the real patriots who came to this country after seeing the horrors of those communist regime. So I guess Anna's story would be one of them. And Governor DeSantis also signed another bill, is SB 1108. This bill requires state university students to receive civic literacy courses and the civic literacy assessments before they can graduate. So before this bill is introduced, students in Florida only need to do one of them, either the course or the assessment. So high school students will also be required under this bill to participate in citizen literacy assessment. If they passed the test, then they can be exempt from taking the civic education test at a college or university. This bill also expanded the character development curriculum for the third and the fourth year in high school, including introduction on how to register to vote. DeSantis said that he is proud to sign these bills that prioritize civic education. He said, the sad reality is that only 2/5 of Americans can correctly name the 3 branches of government, and more than 1/3 of Americans cannot name any of the rights guaranteed by the First Amendment. He said, obviously, we need to do better in civic education in order to prepare them for the rest of their lives. And the third bill signed by DeSantis is the House Bill 233, which aims to protect the freedom of knowledge and the diversity of opinions on campus in the post-secondary education. It requires state colleges and universities to conduct annual assessments of the freedom of thought and diversity of opinion in these institutions. The bill defines freedom of thought and the diversity of views as to allow students to contact and encourage students to explore various ideologies and political views. This new legislation prohibits schools engaged in post-secondary education from restricting students and the staff from contacting or discussing ideas and opinions they may find uncomfortable, unwelcome, disagree with, or feel offensive. Governor DeSantis said that we obviously want our universities to focus on critical thinking end academic rigor. And we do not want them to basically become a breeding ground for the outdated ideologies. He said it's not worth the taxpayers' money, and also it's not something we want to support in the future. DeSantis pointed out that in the past, people thought that a university campus was a place where you would be exposed to these ideas. Unfortunately, he said the current state of affairs is that these environments do suppress ideas, especially. And he said that you have generally accepted views, then it will be promoted, and the other views are avoided or even suppressed. He said that we don't want this to happen in Florida, and he said that we need to have a real ideological contest. And he believes that students should not be shielded from their minds, and hope that in the colleges and the universities, there is a strong speech, like a freedom of speech on campus that's protected by the First Amendment. So the Florida Department of Education Commissioner Richard Corker, he talked about the importance of signing these 3 bills.
We always ask ourselves, what's the purpose of education? And so often you hear, the purpose of education is get a job. And it's not. What you're hearing today is that what makes America exceptional, what makes it great, is we're a self-governing society. And in order to preserve that self-governing society, and this is something that the governor said in Naples 3 years ago when we started the whole civics movement under his leadership, and in order to do that, you have to have a knowledgeable citizenry. You have to raise up critical thinkers, people who can work outside the box and synthesize large volumes of information, and that's the game changer. I think it was Thomas Jefferson who coined the phrase that if you expect to be ignorant and free, you expect what never was and what never will be.
So these 3 bills are the latest round of efforts by the DeSantis government to focus on the civic education in Florida. So actually back in 2019, DeSantis signed an executive order involving the complete abolishing of the Common Core in Florida, which is teaching standard of reading, writing, and mathematics adopted by most states in the United States since 2010. And in that executive order, DeSantis instructed the commissioner, Richard Concoran, to provide advice and suggestion to the state legislature, including how to improve testing and determine how to truly make civic education a priority in Florida. And then recently, the Republican governor supported the decision of the Board of Education in Florida to ban the teaching of critical race theory in public schools. Governor DeSantis said that if education is in the right place, and there will, then we can educate more successful citizens, which will benefit the community.
At the end of the day, the ideas that the country was founded on, have been the key ideas for hundreds of years now, in terms of people doing great things and people achieving freedoms and going to new horizons.
All right, so Governor DeSantis, he is really in the front line of really trying to reform, change the college, the education in both high school and the college. It shows that many people on the conservative side realized the importance of really to change what's happening in the education system. And it might, how it would affect other states, it will remain to be seen. And so I'm sure, you would be also interested in that. And so, by the way, the House, the Senate voted a 50-50, which actually failed to pass the voting bill. that it was called by Democrats the People's Act, which would federalize the voting system in the United States. So it failed, but how it would go, whether the Democrats will still try to push in other ways, we don't know. But actually, the audit of the 2020 election started. It's almost complete in Arizona, but the results has not been announced yet. Many other states, they visited the Maricopa County's audit, and some of the states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, they all wanted to do the similar audit in the coming days. So since there's not enough time today, we will just briefly touch upon that. All right, so that's all for today's news, and I was trying to see if I can bring you a joke, but just crunched for time, was not able to do that. So we'll, this debt is still on way. All right, but thank you for being with me, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time on Friday. So take care and have a good night. Bye-bye.